Bullies always seemed to have a sixth sense for detecting weakness. At least that's what Kai-chan thought as he felt their eyes following him through the hallways of Westlake High. It was only his 5th day at the new school, and already the hierarchy had marked him. Fresh meat, easy target, outsider. Kai kept his head down as he walked to his locker, his slender frame and quiet demeanor making him appear vulnerable. His worn backpack hung from one shoulder, containing textbooks and, hidden beneath them, a small leather-bound journal filled with his grandfather's teachings. Teachings that had shaped every aspect of his life since he was 5 years old. "Hey, new kid." The voice belonged to Derek Thornton, captain of the wrestling team and self-appointed king of the senior class. "I'm talking to you, chopstick boy." Kai continued organizing his books, his movements deliberate and economical. Not because he was afraid, but because grandfather had taught him that unnecessary motion wasted energy. Efficiency in all things, Master Tanaka would say during their pre-dawn training sessions, his voice soft but commanding as the morning mist rolled across the dojo floor. "You deaf or something?" Derek slammed Kai's locker shut, nearly catching his fingers. The hallway quieted as students sensed the coming confrontation. Kai turned, his eyes meeting Derek's without challenge or submission. Simply awareness. "I heard you," he said, his voice calm. "I'm Kai." Derek exchanged glances with his 2 friends, Mason and Tyler, clearly thrown off by the lack of fear. "Well, Kai," he mocked the pronunciation. "You need to learn how things work around here. New kids pay a tax." He held out his hand. "Lunch money. Now." Behind his glasses, Kai's eyes showed no reaction. He remembered grandfather's words from years ago. The tiger hides its claws until needed. For 12 years, Kai had risen before dawn, trained until his muscles burned, meditated until his mind cleared. Summers spent not at camp but at his grandfather's remote mountain dojo, learning techniques that martial artists 3 times his age struggled to master. No one at Westlake could know that Kai's grandfather was once Takeshi Tanaka, the Shadow Dragon, whose demonstrations of precision and power had become legendary in international martial arts circles. After a championship fight that left his opponent hospitalized, grandfather had withdrawn from public life, dedicating himself to teaching his only grandson the true essence of martial arts. Not violence, but harmony of body and spirit. "I don't have lunch money," Kai said truthfully. "I bring my own food." The bento box in his backpack was carefully prepared that morning. Another skill grandfather insisted he master. A warrior prepares his own meals to understand what nourishes him. Derek's face reddened. "Then maybe you need to give us something else." He reached for Kai's backpack. Kai shifted slightly, a movement so subtle it appeared he merely adjusted his stance. Yet somehow Derek's grab missed entirely, his hand closing on empty air where the backpack had been a split second before. Confusion flashed across Derek's face. He tried again, more aggressively, but Kai seemed to flow away from the contact like water around a stone. Students watching began to murmur. Derek hadn't touched him, yet he couldn't seem to lay a hand on the new kid. "Stop dancing around." Derek lunged forward with his full weight. Kai sidestepped with precision timing, neither retreating nor advancing, simply not being where the attack landed. Derek stumbled forward, his momentum carrying him into the lockers with a crash that echoed through the hallway. Whispers erupted among the watching students. Kai stood exactly as before, his posture unchanged, expression calm. Only someone very observant would notice his breathing remained perfectly controlled, his stance subtly balanced to move in any direction. What the hell was that? Mason stepped forward, fists clenched. Kai adjusted his glasses. "I didn't touch him," he said quietly. "He lost his balance." Grandfather's voice echoed in his mind. True victory comes not from defeating others, but from remaining true to yourself when tested. Kai had never used his training to harm anyone. 12 years of discipline, of falls on hard mats, of holding stances until his legs trembled, of meditating under freezing waterfalls, all to learn control, not violence. The bell rang, dispersing the crowd. As students hurried to class, Derek picked himself up, glaring at Kai with newfound wariness. "This isn't over," he muttered. but there was uncertainty in his voice now. Kai nodded once, neither accepting the challenge nor backing down. As he walked to class, he felt the weight of his grandfather's medallion against his chest, hidden beneath his simple t-shirt. The inscription read, "The strongest tree bends with the wind." The confrontation had just begun, but Kai knew one thing with certainty. He would face it the way grandfather had taught him, with discipline, respect, and only as much force as absolutely necessary. Bullies never forget an embarrassment. By lunchtime, word had spread throughout Westlake High about the morning's confrontation. Derek Thornton sat with his teammates at their usual table, stabbing angrily at his cafeteria food while recounting a heavily edited version of events. "New kid got lucky, that's all," he growled, though the bruise forming on his forearm where he'd hit the locker told a different story. "I wasn't even trying." Mason leaned in. "He's sitting alone over there. Perfect chance to teach him a real lesson." Across the cafeteria, Kai sat quietly, methodically eating from his bento box with chopsticks. He'd chosen the most isolated table, not out of fear but from habit. Grandfather had taught him to observe before engaging, to understand the environment before becoming part of it. "Look at him with his fancy lunch and chopsticks," Tyler snickered. "Thinks he's special." Derek's eyes narrowed. 3 against 1. Let's see him dance away from that. The cafeteria quieted as Derek, Mason, and Tyler approached Kai's table. Students pulled out phones, anticipating drama worth recording. Even a few teachers at the perimeter seemed to sense the tension, watching carefully but not yet intervening. "Hey, Kung Fu Kid," Derek called out, loud enough for everyone to hear. "That was a cute trick this morning. Do you do birthday parties too?" Kai continued eating, his movements deliberate and precise. He finished his bite, set down his chopsticks with care, and finally looked up. "I'm just having lunch," he said evenly. "Not anymore." Derek swept Kai's bento box off the table with a vicious swipe. Rice and vegetables scattered across the floor, the carefully crafted meal ruined. The lacquered box clattered against the tile. A ripple of nervous laughter spread through the cafeteria. This was familiar territory, the ritual humiliation of an outsider. What happened next, however, was not. Kai stood slowly, his movement fluid and controlled. For the first time, students noticed something different about his posture, a balanced readiness that seemed strangely at odds with his slender frame. Nothing aggressive, nothing threatening, yet somehow everyone watching sensed a shift in the atmosphere. "That was unnecessary," Kai said, his voice still quiet but carrying across the now silent cafeteria. Derek smirked, emboldened by his friends flanking him. "What are you going to do about it, chopstick boy? Call your grandpa?" Something flickered in Kai's eyes, not anger, but focus. Those watching would later struggle to describe exactly what happened next. Derek lunged forward, aiming a shove at Kai's chest. His hands seemed to meet their target, yet somehow Kai remained perfectly in place while Derek stumbled backward, as if he'd pushed against a concrete wall. "What the?" Mason stepped in, swinging wildly. Kai barely seemed to move, yet Mason's punch missed entirely, the momentum spinning him off balance. Tyler charged from the side, attempting to tackle Kai to the ground. In a motion so smooth it appeared choreographed, Kai pivoted slightly, redirecting Tyler's charge. The larger boy crashed into an empty table, appending it with a spectacular clatter. The entire sequence had taken less than 5 seconds. Kai stood exactly where he'd started, not a hair out of place, his breathing calm and measured. Derek and his friends lay scattered around him in various states of confusion. Students stared in disbelief. Phones recorded furiously. Kai hadn't thrown a single punch, hadn't executed any dramatic kicks or flips. He'd barely seemed to move at all, yet 3 athletic seniors couldn't touch him. "He's like untouchable," someone whispered loudly. Derek scrambled to his feet, his face flushed with humiliation. "You're dead, new kid," he shouted, charging forward with reckless abandon. This time, everyone clearly saw what happened. As Derek approached, Kai shifted slightly, turned his hip, and seemed to guide rather than block Derek's momentum. the wrestling captain found himself redirected. His own force used against him as he flipped through the air, landing flat on his back with a thud that echoed through the stunned cafeteria. The fall knocked the wind from Derek's lungs. He lay gasping, staring up at ceiling tiles and the face of Kai looking down at him with neither triumph nor malice, just calm assessment. "My grandfather taught me that anger blinds true sight," Kai said quietly, extending a hand to help Derek up. "You're stronger than me, but strength without control defeats itself." Derek stared at the offered hand, confusion replacing rage in his eyes. The entire cafeteria held its collective breath. The social hierarchy of Westlake High was being rewritten before their eyes, not through domination but through something far more rare, skill that required no boasting. Bullies rarely become friends with their targets, but sometimes a moment of clarity changes everything. The cafeteria remained frozen in stunned silence as Derek stared at Kai's outstretched hand. 12 years of being the strongest, the most feared student at Westlake, and now he lay on his back, defeated without his opponent throwing a single punch. After what seemed like eternity, Derek reached up and accepted Kai's hand. As Kai helped him to his feet, whispers erupted throughout the cafeteria. Phones still recorded, capturing the unexpected turn of events. "You could have really hurt me," Derek said quietly, the realization dawning in his eyes. Kai shook his head. "That was never my intention." He bent down and began collecting the scattered pieces of his bento box. "My grandfather's first lesson wasn't about striking, but about restraint." Principal Whitmore pushed through the crowd, his face stern. "What's going on here? Fighting in my cafeteria?" Before Derek could speak, Kai straightened up. "No fighting, sir. We had a misunderstanding that's been resolved." The principal looked skeptically at the overturned table, the scattered food, and the 3 athletic boys who seemed unusually subdued. "Is that right, Mr. Thornton?" Derek hesitated, pride warring with truth. Finally, he nodded. "Yeah, just a misunderstanding. Clean this mess up, all of you," Principal Whitmore ordered before walking away, still suspicious but willing to let it go without witnesses coming forward. As the crowd dispersed and lunch period resumed its normal rhythm, Mason and Tyler helped right the overturned table, while Derek continued staring at Kai with newfound respect. "Where did you learn to do that?" he finally asked. Kai carefully placed the broken pieces of his bento box into his backpack. "My grandfather's dojo. I've trained with him since I was 5. "You didn't even hit back," Tyler said, clearly confused by the concept. "You could have destroyed us." Kai's expression remained serene. "Grandfather says the highest form of victory is to win without fighting. Anyone can harm. Few can protect without harm." After the cafeteria was cleaned, the 4 boys sat at a table together, creating a buzz of speculation among the other students. Derek had brought Kai a replacement lunch from the cafeteria line, a peace offering that didn't go unnoticed. "So your grandfather," Derek said between bites. "He must be some kind of champion?" A small smile touched Kai's lips. "He was once known as Takashi Tanaka, the Shadow Dragon, but he left competition decades ago. He believes martial arts aren't about trophies or defeating opponents, but about mastering yourself." Recognition flashed in Mason's eyes. "Wait, Takashi Tanaka? My dad has old videos of him. He was legendary. Didn't he disappear after nearly killing someone in the World Championships?" "He didn't disappear," Kai explained. "He chose a different path. The man he injured recovered fully, but grandfather was changed by it. He decided to teach only one student, me, and to focus on the true purpose of martial arts. Protection of self and others, not dominance." As Kai spoke, a group of freshmen passed by their table. One small boy was being shoved by 2 larger students, his books knocked to the floor. Without hesitation, Derek stood up. "Hey, cut that out," he called, his voice carrying the authority it always had, but now directed differently. The bullies scattered immediately, recognition and fear in their eyes. Derek helped the freshman gather his books, then returned to the table where Kai watched with quiet approval. "What?" Derek said defensively. "That kid didn't deserve that." "Neither did I," Kai said simply. Derek had the grace to look embarrassed. Yeah, well, maybe your grandfather's philosophy isn't complete nonsense. The restraint you show when you have power reveals your true character, Kai quoted. Grandfather would say you passed the test just now. By the end of lunch period, something remarkable had happened. The bully and his target sat not as enemies or even as cautious acquaintances, but as the beginnings of something that might become friendship. Derek's social capital meant no one would target Kai again, but more importantly, something in Derek himself had shifted. You should come to wrestling practice, Derek suggested as they gathered their trays. Coach Wilson would flip if he saw what you can do. Kai considered this. I've never competed. You wouldn't have to, Derek said. Just show us some moves. That redirect thing you did could help us win state this year. For the first time since arriving at Westlake, Kai felt a genuine smile form. I'll ask grandfather. He always says that knowledge becomes more valuable when shared. As they walked out of the cafeteria together, students parted before them. Not out of fear, but awe. The story was already spreading throughout the school. The new kid who could have destroyed the bullies but chose mercy instead. The quiet boy who had been raised by a martial arts legend not to dominate, but to transcend conflict itself. One thing I don't get, Derek said as they reached the hallway. If your grandfather is so famous, why move to a small town like this? Why not open a big dojo in the city? Kai's eyes held wisdom beyond his years. Grandfather says true strength flourishes best away from those who would exploit it. We came here to live quietly, not to draw attention. Derek laughed. Well, that plan's shot. By tomorrow, everyone in school will know who you are. Kai sighed, but there was acceptance in it. Grandfather also says that sometimes the path finds you, even when you're not looking for it. As the bell rang and students rushed to afternoon classes, a new legend was already taking shape at Westlake High. Not of domination through force, but of power tempered by compassion. And perhaps most surprisingly, the school's most notorious bully had become its most unexpected advocate for this revolutionary idea.